I will talk about forest productivity and present you results from the one case study that I'm doing for my, this will be part of the results from my thesis project. So I'm doing masters with the Department of Renewable Resources, U of A. So productivity, that's one of the most important information in sustainable forest management, for forest planning and so on. And if we talk about forest productivity of Western boreal forests, we can say that they are driven by moisture availability, which is controlled by topography. What's that actually mean? Here is one example in this figure. It presents some profile in lower foothills natural subregion. You are probably familiar with this. This is from the Ecosite Guide of Alberta. And we can see that as topography changes, there are changes in soil types, in soil profiles. These are soil profiles here. And as well as changes in soil moisture regime. And in our study, we hypothesized that there are changes in forest productivity as well. So in addition, different species might have a different response on those changes, and some species are more productive on the upper slope dry soils. Some are more productive on lower slope wetter soils, and so on. On the other hand, about topography, so as we already heard today, most of Alberta's forested land has already been covered by the LiDAR and WAM, and that's the great source of very accurate data about topography. So the purpose of this study is that we will try to explore that possibility to use this kind of information in estimating forest productivity, and on that way to more effectively inform forest management. So how to estimate forest productivity? There's a wide variety of different methods from the phytocentric to geocentric, from more indirect to direct measures. In our study, we used the site index as widely used as a measure of productivity in forestry practice. What's more, growth and yield models used in Alberta, that's GIPSy and the MGM, used site index as indicator of forest of productivity. So in our study, we followed standard approach in defining site index. So that's the average top height in even-aged forests at some reference age. And what's used in Alberta and what we use in our study, that's the reference age is 50 years. Just to note about this method, that main assumption for site index approach is that we need trees that have not been suppressed in earlier development. So trees that have not been impacted by that, which height growth have not been impacted by other competition, other trees, or even management practice, or so. That's sometimes issue in some ecosystems, like in boreal mixedwood, and we know that we can see in a picture that white spruce usually regenerates under the canopy of aspen trees, and later become the dominant in a canopy. But sometimes, due to the multiple pathways of boreal mixedwood, it can be free to grow even in young stands, and that means that we should be, especially with the white spruce, should be very careful with selecting the trees to determine site index to avoid that issue. So research goal, as I said, for this study is to examine that site index environmental relationship, and to try to build the model by using various soil and topographic variables, and on that way with the focus on remotely sensed variables from the LiDAR and WAM, and on that way to try to find some useful applicable models. So we tested this relationship on three main commercial tree species in central Alberta. So those are trembling aspen, white spruce, and lodgepole pine. So for this study, we selected research site that's in central Alberta, near the town of Slave Lake. It is situated in lower foothills natural subregion in the area of Big Vega fire, which occurred in 1968. Why we selected this location? First, because the stands has fire origin, so that means they are similar age. Also, they are now close to the site index reference age of 50 years. And also, there's no management, they are unmanaged, so no silvicultural activities and something that can affect the tree growth, height growth of those trees. Also, this landscape provides a range of tree species, and also what's important for the analysis, a range of site conditions. And we choose to conduct a case study just to focus on those topography indices of interest and to eliminate the climate variables from the analysis. Field sampling, so we established a network of temporary sample plots. We used the ecosite map, and also we used the depth to water map just to distribute those plots around and to capture the broad range of site conditions. Then we collected data in the field. So we first collected our potential explanatory variables. So we measured topographic and soil properties, and then also conducted measurements on the selected appropriate top height trees to determine site index. Then we looked for remotely sensed data and collected high resolution data from the LiDAR's digital elevation model, as well as we used those indexes, depth to water and flow accumulation from the wet areas mapping. After the field season, we came up with a sample size of 105 temporary sample plots for the trembling aspen, 52 for lodgepole pine, and then 50 for the white spruce. So then we calculated, processed the data, and first our dependent variables in analysis is site index, and we calculated by using Gypsy's site index curves, and then averaged those data at the plot level. And from then the set of explanatory variables, we split it. We divided that in a remotely sensed variables data set and the ground-based measure variables, and so that will allowed us to compare those quality of site index predictions and to evaluate actually how good are those remotely sensed variables. So for those remotely sensed variables, we used from WAM, depth to water and flow accumulation, and we already heard today how that actually, what they mean and how that actually works. So just to note that in our analysis, we used depth to water calculated from 6 different flow initiation areas. So we used from 0.5 to 10 hectares. So 4 is kind of a standard one, but we also wanted to explore to find maybe some better depth to water index in predicting, in this case, site index. Then we looked for a LiDAR's variable. We used the simple one like slope, altitude, and aspect, but we transformed that to the polar nature of that variable. Also computed slope position index, followed the methodology that first calculates topographic position index. But since that variable is scale dependent, we tested different neighborhood areas to calculate that from 5 to 100 meters and found that 15 and 20 meters neighborhood areas best represents that moderate hilly area, study area, and that best correlates with our field observations. Then also we calculated the surface curvature 3 different ways and tested it, and also used tried to use the topographic wetness index as one of the most widely used topographic indices in this or similar kind of studies. Then in the field, we, of course, measured the basic topographic variables, and then also opened the soil pit and conducted assessed soil properties following the ecosite guide. So we restricted those soil properties that we want just on those that we can determine in a field. We didn't do any following soil chemical and soil physical property and laboratory analysis. So that just we tend to develop some applicable models. So we didn't want to try to do that laboratory analysis. Then we analyzed our data on 4 different statistical methods. We have started with the standard approach using a multiple linear regression parametric method. However, then we look in literature, and also due to the expecting nature of this variable soil and topographic variables, and expecting collinearity interactions, and also already detected the nonlinear relationship between some variables and site index. Then we then tried to model site index variation using some other approaches. So we used the generalized semi-parametric generalized additive modeling, then used the non-parametric regression trees, and then random forest, also non-parametric kind of extension of the previous regression trees method. And here are the main results from this research. So first step was to evaluate or try to find optimal flow initiation area for WAM for calculating depth to water index. So we fitted the site index from depth to water using linear regression, and just applied some logarithmic transformations to linearize that relationship for the lodgepole pine and white spruce. And here are the results in the table. So first column is that flow initiation area, and 6 different flow initiation areas. Then second column, other 2 columns are fit statistics, absolute and relative fit statistics. Just to recall, this is root mean square error means, and results mean that the lower the better, and R square, actually that's the amount of variation explained by the model. It means the higher the better. And then just to visualize these results, I plotted that in this graph. So these results from R square are plotted here. And what we can see, so first important pattern in this relationship is that from 0.5 to 1 hectare for all 3 species there's increase. So that suggests that actually 0.5 is probably too small area, and not necessary to compare that, and then in the range from 1 to 10 hectares, each species has different trend. So for the white spruce, there's from 1 to 10 hectares there's increase in R square. So oppositely for aspen there's decrease, and actually for the pine, despite some small differences, there's actually no significant difference for all those 5 different flow initiation areas. So for the further analysis, we selected the best depth to water index. That's 1 hectare for the aspen, 2 hectares for the pine, and 10 hectares for the white spruce. And finally, here is those relationship between depth to water and site index. So for the aspen, there's a negative linear trend. So it's mean as depth to water is higher, as site is away from the water table. It is less productive site for the aspen, and a bit opposite trends for the white spruce and lodgepole pine. There's a positive logarithmic relationship for both of those species. So main message from this analysis. We can say that we didn't actually find the optimal flow initiation area. for all those three species, like the one optimal flow initiation area, and that probably suggests us that for this or similar kind of studies, it worth exploring different depth to water indexes because it could be such a big difference in the explaining variation, for example, for the aspen, for 0.28 to the 0.39. So that's the first step. Then the results from modeling site index, and we developed 24 site index prediction models. They are species specific, and then also, as I said, we have two different explanatory data sets and 4 different statistical methods. So the limited time, and I'm going to present just results from the one example. That's for the aspen from remotely sensed variables. So first method was multiple linear regression. We followed standard procedure there with the backward variable selection procedure and using BIC as a statistic criteria to select the best model. Here is equation, and we can see there's five variables in the model. So depth to water, flow accumulation, altitude, aspect, and curvature. Then we calculated the relative importance of those variables. That means how much they contribute to the total amount of variation explained by the model. And we can see that the much stronger predictors are depth to water, altitude, and curvature, while flow accumulation and aspect show as a weaker one. Then we validated that model in these partial regression curves to see how each of these variables act in a model, and to confirm ecological interpretability of the model. And then here in the red box is a basic of fit statistics. And just to note that this model, these are adjusted R-squared, so it explains about 64% of variation in a site index. Then the second method is a generalized additive model, and a similar approach with backward variable selection procedure found that the optimal model contains depth to water, flow accumulation, aspect, and slope position. Just to compare with the previous one, instead of altitude and curvature, we now have slope position. And also in terms of what are the best predictors, again, depth to water and slope position are the much stronger predictors than the other two, flow accumulation and aspect. Also, this method allows some smooth or non-linear fit, and here is that fit with depth to water, flow accumulation, and slope position. So it's not the linear relationship. Fit statistics says that actually it's not significant, but slightly better results from this modeling approach. So then regression tree method. So we grow the decision tree and then apply the pruning as a method to protect of overfitting. And the final model contains the 5 variables in this case: depth to water, flow accumulation, slope, curvature, and altitude. And the first split in a decision tree, and that's by this method the most important split that explained the largest amount of variation, it is a depth to water with the threshold value of 10.9 meter of depth to water, and with other splits it just distinguish the sites, and those are here is on y-axis is a site index, and it distinguish, we can track what's the least productive site, and on the other side we have we can see what's the most productive site in terms of aspen site index. So fit statistics again showed a bit better results than the previous two methods. And the final model. Final method is a random forest method. It's kind of an extension of the previous regression tree method, which grows many trees and then summarize over them. And firstly, for the full data set, I calculated variable importance, and here is a graph of variable importance. So again, first and most important parameter is depth to water, and there's a range of other parameters, and we can see that it's 0 for the Aspen. That means that that parameter is irrelevant as a predictor in this method. Then apply the backward variable selection procedure and find that the optimal random forest model contains 3 variables: depth to water, flow accumulation, and slope position. Fit statistics, now adjusted square is 0.59. It's a bit lower than the previous approaches, but this is a bit different statistical method. It has a built-in cross-validation procedure, and actually this R square comes from the validation data set. So in that case, it is expected to be a bit lower. It is a bit lower, but again, it's not a big difference. So over all 4 methods, we can conclude that all 4 methods confirm this relationship. In each case, it's pretty strong relationship between environmental factors and site index. And despite some differences in number of variables in a model between which variables are picked in a model, we can say that they show the good results. So now here is a summary over all, and we can compare over the all models. So we use adjusted R square as the statistics to compare between them. And in this bar graph, results are grouped by species and also by the data sources. And there's different colors for different statistical methods. First, what we can see in a graph that there are differences between the species. So white spruce showed the weaker relationship than the aspen and pine. They are pretty close, slightly better results for the lodgepole pine. Then we can compare the data source, and then we can see that despite some small differences between the ground-based and remotely sensed data set, we applied an ANOVA test just to compare those results and find no significant difference between remotely sensed predictors and ground-based measured predictors. And finally, differences between the modeling approaches. So again, ANOVA test showed that that was expected, that random forest method showed a bit lower results. That was significant, but again, that comes from the different method used. So if we focus now just on remotely sensed predictors, what are the best predictors here? So depth to water showed in all models built on remotely sensed variables. This 100% means that each modeling approach for each species selected depth to water in the best model. And what's more, usually the depth to water is the strongest predictor in those models. So that we can say that on the first place, the best predictor is depth to water, and among that we have altitude, flow accumulation, slope position, while the other slope aspect and curvatures show just in some of the models. And now we can see how we can actually apply these models. So here is a part of the study area. You can see in this hillshade map, we can see actually one big hill in the area, and we can see a ridge, and then steep slope on one side, more gentle on the other side. We can see stream channels. Here is part of the lake, and those dots are actually sample plots that we measured. On the right-hand map, we created that Aspen site index potential site index map based on multiple linear regression model. And we can see in a map the classes of site index, and the yellow color is the least productive site with the less than 16 meters of site index. And on the map, it is located on the steepest slope and upslope positions like in here. And next class, 16 to 18 meters of site index are along the ridge and on upslopes. And then, as topography gradually changes, there's changes in site index. And the most productive sites with more than 24 meters of site index are associated with the stream network channels. So that's one example. The other example is for lodgepole pine. So this is part of the lodgepole pine block, and we can see here, okay, road and then some cut line, also the streams, and we can see on one side here is part of one bog, and probably another bog is in here, and we can see some small ridges and some upland positions, and if we compare that with the site index map, we can see that the least productive sites with site index less than 8 meters are associated with the bogs and also associated with the stream channels. And then just to recall the relationship between depth to water and pine site index is with that logarithmic shape of curve, and then from the bog there's quick change in productivity, and the most oppositely to the aspen, the most productive sites are actually located on upper land and on those crests or ridges or so on. So according to these results, we can conclude. So first results show that we can successfully use this kind of information in predicting of site index in a lower foothills natural subregion. And results for both data sets showed significant relationship and also pretty strong relationship, and the results are pretty similar for all different explanatory data sets. So, however, remote sensing technology could provide a cost-effective way to assess forest productivity, and mapped site index is one of additional benefit for it. So we found the different strength of relationship between site index and environmental variables, and that comes from the different different species differently respond on that site characteristics. Also, we found no significant difference in fit statistics using different statistical methods. However, maps obtained from regression tree models do not perform well. Best predictors from the set of remotely sensed variables are depth to water, altitude, and slope position. And since today we are talking about the WAM, the models with WAM indexes just use depth to water and flow accumulation by themselves explain up to 60% of variation in aspen site index, 65 for pine, and 39 for white spruce. So those are results from this case study from my thesis project. Now I would like to say just a few words about some similar studies. So in our research group, several studies have been conducting using depth to water or other remotely sensed variables. So this is one of them, just still ongoing. So not too much results about that, but it is a study about predicting competing vegetation potential. So with the same idea to use environmental variables to predict abundance and height of calamagrostis and competing vegetation potential, and that's the purpose of that is to predict some forest management and silvicultural needs. So for that, we selected the several cut blocks 3 to 4 years old without herbicide treatment, because we want fully developed calamagrostis cover in the block so we can test this relationship. Also, we distributed those. We selected those blocks to capture the range of site conditions, and we got some range in terms of soil moisture regime, soil depth to water, and some very pre-analysis show that we also have a significant relationship with column-agnostic height and depth to water. So that's one study. So some other study was done by Dan Jensen in his master thesis defended last year. So one of his research questions was, is the occurrence of gaps and their size related to depth to water? He analyzed the two mature aspen stands near the Grand Prairie, and here in the graphs are the main results from that study, with the conclusion that both the number and the size of gaps are higher when depth to water is less than 10 centimeter compared to the areas with the higher depth to water. So other study was done by Gabriel Oltian, also in his master thesis defended last year, and some interesting research question for him was, can depth to water predict carbon isotope ratio in the trees? And carbon isotope ratio is an indicator of water stress, and that mechanism works like if there's water stress, there's stomatal closure, and that will influence on increase of carbon isotope ratio. So he conducted research on 2 sites in west central Alberta on 2 species, and here are his main result and the message. So he found a significant relationship for both species, and carbon isotope ratio increases with the depth to water, but at some point levels off. And then he included in analysis precipitation, because it's expected that with less precipitation, carbon isotope ratio will increase. And here are the models, and with final conclusion, then carbon isotope ratio increases with depth to water and decreases with the precipitation. So at the end, I would like to thanks to some institutions helped conducting this research. So first, Alberta Agriculture and Forestry for funding these projects. Then Department of Renewable Resources, University of Alberta, Westbogey Association, and the people helped in field work and analysis.